All right. So yeah, welcome to lesson number 15 in Niver, which is all about the past tense, or rather, I should say the past sDm.f, which is the other big sDm.f. We've talked about the prospective one before. So this is different from I shouldn't, since I'm not that good at Middle Egyptian, I shouldn't do a direct comparison, but basically in a lot of ways, this fills what the sDm.nf would do in late Egyptian. So this is, I'm sorry, in Middle Egyptian. So this is definitely different. It's a verb form that you would use basically where you would use a past tense in English. I said, I did, I found, etc. It can also fill the role of a present perfect. What have I done? What have I found? What have you said? Etc. It can also work as a past perfect if it is in a past tense narration. So he said that he had found him. Basically, an action that happened before the main action of the sentence. That's also possible. It's all done by the sDm.f. Now, hang on, I put a few notes here. In terms of spelling, the sDm.f form, for most verbs, it looks, oh no, I should say for all verbs, it looks um, like the prospective sDm.f. You really can't tell them apart. For most verbs, the stem doesn't change at all. Some of those verbs that have a weak third radical, so basically, for example, a year, um, a reed leaf, they have special forms. You can see that here, for example, for iri, to do, the past sDm.f is with a double reed leaf, so something like, well, that's where it gets tricky. Maybe idai. Um, then for a D, you often find this W here. Um, Unfortunately, it's the same for the prospective. So for the prospective, it's also spelled this way. And it's spelled differently from the infinitive, but it doesn't really tell you if the past tense and the prospective were pronounced differently or not. If you look at Poist, he claims that one of them is an A vowel, the prospective, and the past tense he has as an U vowel. So it would be irai versus irui. But the more I think about it, we don't really know that because only one of them survived into Coptic. So maybe they were even pronounced the same. One verb that has a difference is iwi, to come. So this one has a different form for the past, this one here, Eve versus the prospective, which is spelled differently. We've met this one the other day in the in that exercise for the strike, the worker strike, where the overseers or the scribes say, "May you come," basically, and they use the perspective and they use this verb form. Now that would be different in the past. That's the only one I can think of, though, that has a difference between those two sedimentary forms. Okay. In terms of history, Neveu asserts unequivocally that it comes from usage MNF. He's not the only one. Like, for example, Poist also has that derivation. That's how he comes up with the vowel. On the other hand, if you look in Cherny Gwal, the late Egyptian grammar, there's a whole page dedicated to why that is not the case. I'm not going to take a position on it, just wanted to point out that the way it is in Neveu is not the only position. Cherny has a lot to say about it. In Coptic, this gets replaced by a periphrastic construction. What I mean by periphrastic is you use a helping verb, an auxiliary verb, namely to do. You use the past tense of that, and then you glue the infinitive onto that. So instead of saying such muff, he said, you use the past tense of iri, so something like iriaf or something, he said, and then put the infinitive there. This starts already in late Egyptian, namely for those verbs that have four radicals or more. So four radical verbs, five radical verbs. Instead of trying to form the sDm.f form, you glue that, or you put the EDF in front of it, and then just use the infinitive. Presumably because it was easier to pronounce, or I'm not completely sure what it is. It's just the same way, like we, for example, you would say great, greater in English, but you wouldn't say beautifuler, but you would say more beautiful. So when the words got really long, periphrastic constructions are often used, and that's the same here in Egyptian. And over time, those become,
May I say something there,
yes,
Aurelia,
of
though?
course, absolutely.
With in English, I know what you're talking about because I was taught the same rule in English, but it's actually where the words come from.
From
It's
let
almost
from
it's Latin versus
uh,
Germanic.
oh, that's interesting.
My guess is that if Egyptian is there in any way like Hebrew, then 4 and 5 consonant radicals are just a lot rarer. So if they have any sort of difficulty, any sort of irregularity, that gets dropped really fast because these are generally not terribly common verbs, and there aren't all that many of them. It would be really interesting to see if this starts earlier for verbs that actually have 4 consonants versus those that only have 4 or 5 consonants because of some form of reduplication or causativeness, because those tend to be a little more regular.
Yeah, interesting.
Because in
Hmm.
Hebrew, you find a lot of um, you find a lot of you find a lot of regularities in 4 and 5 consonant verbs if they have reduplication or something like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that might not be the reason. The reason might be that generally the system wants your verbs to have 3 consonants and not more.
Right.
So everything above that is, yeah, we don't
It's
really
weird.
like that. It's weird. Let's do something else with that.
Interesting. I like your explanation. Let's go with that. So basically, you think it's a frequency thing more than a
I think
just a tongue
again,
twister
this is
thing.
judging from a different, though of course related language,
Hmm. Hmm.
that really sort of kind of doesn't really. You sometimes get the impression doesn't really like that, like those verbs.
I take that. I mean, sounds plausible to me. And you see that a lot that less frequent verbs normally get somewhat regularized or somehow treated differently.
I
Hmm.
think it's got something to do with how often you hear them. So if the verb isn't so frequent, you won't hear the irregular forms often enough for them to sound right. So I
Right.
think this is a fairly general tendency that less frequent words are more likely to have some kind of regular construction. If you look at verbs, like look at in the European languages, what's the absolute most irregular verb in
To be,
just, yeah,
always to be.
it's
The most
always to
common
be,
verb.
except in the Slavic languages, which don't use it nearly as much.
Right. Or to go. That's the other one. I mean,
That's
come,
the other
go,
one.
be,
To
and
go,
give
to
is
be.
sometimes weird too. So
Yeah,
yeah, no, you're right. The most frequent ones. Now,
exactly.
this becomes so it becomes a thing in late Egyptian for 4 or more radicals. In the in Demotic that lives on, and then basically in Coptic, this is the standard. So it becomes more and more the case that you use the helping verb, and you shift the burden away from the main verb, and you just use the auxiliary verb. So in Coptic, it would be afsotem. So you don't use the sDm.f anymore. And that's unfortunately why we also don't know how it would exactly be pronounced because, well, it died out. It was replaced by that periphrastic construction. So much for the morphology of it. Any question on that before we go into how it's used?
I just wanted to say something about Alan in Alan's Middle Egyptian grammar. There's that whole chapter that's like introduced before they actually get into the how to use the verbs. That's really overwhelming for beginners, I
Oh,
found, but
yes.
that's just a small criticism. But because it shows you all the forms of the possible stems that can happen. It's kind of like the chapter in many Hebrew textbooks that show all the possible Hebrew forms
Right.
before teaching you the simple call stem. So and with that, a lot of them actually, you're right, do seem like they're reduplicated or yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's
Thanks.
like they're more complicated and they're all these like they're not even paradigms. There's like these like diagrams that show like how the stems are related to each other. And for a beginner, that can be really overwhelming, but later on it is pretty cool to see how they're related. And the like the I think it's like the Heath Pael and like some of the ones that you don't see too often, but they are there.
Mm.
Those are kind of uh those are kind of trickier, but like because you don't see them that often, they're not as important to memorize right off the bat. And a lot of the forms actually do relate back to each other in nice ways. So once you get the basics of the simple stem, you can go and learn the rest of it. But with the morphology, I was wondering about so with the Aufsotem, the alpha that's there, is that just Erie that drops the R sound
Yeah,
and it just becomes an Aleph sound in Coptic?
that's right.
Okay.
That's the most
That's
likely scenario.
That's what I was going to ask. But isn't the some form like stative or qualitative of Erie?
I don't think Erie is a great point, but I don't think it has a stative/qualitative, the verb. Or does it? Wait.
Yeah, I think it does.
Right? Isn't it or?
Oh, there's yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
Omicron.
this is really complete revelation to me. I never heard the word periphrastic. So you're saying, so does that really mean he did hearing?
He did hearing, yeah. Just like in
Wow.
like in English, I have heard. I mean, you take the burden away from the hearing, and you
Well,
put
it's
the
funny because I just associate it with French.
same thing.
Il a pensé, but
Right.
it presumably that is something completely different. It's not, doesn't mean to do.
That's true. How about English? He did hear. Like, I mean, we use do all over the place. Did you hear
Yeah, we
that?
do. I had no idea. I just immediately thought means past tense. It really helps when you can understand what's behind it. And just in case of someone like me listening, prospective, does that mean the future?
Can be a future, can be like a wish. May you live, may you say, may you do, etc. Or I will say, I will do. It really depends on context. It has that mixture of future and, I mean, to use another term, optative, the thing that you wish for, kind of quality to it. It's also called the subjunctive. Some people
Oh,
from Middle Egyptian make a fine distinction between prospective and subjunctive. For Late Egyptian, I don't think that makes any sense because it's the same thing. It's one sDm.f form that essentially has those two meanings in it. One thing to note, there is the special thing with an extra T, which I think would be called a prospective in Middle Egyptian. And why that T is there, if it was still pronounced, if that's just classical orthography and they keep doing it 1,000 years after Middle Egyptian, I really don't know. But if anybody wants to dig deeper into that, I think that's one of the few forms where you have a distinction in Middle Egyptian for the prospective, if I'm not mistaken. Again, that's not my home territory, my home turf. But yeah, that still lives on, that spelling.
A quick note about the word periphrastic is that it gets used a lot in Latin and Greek grammar, and it's more common in Latin having periphrastic constructions, but it comes from a Greek word, like a lot of things in Latin grammar, which is kind of fun. So it's from peri and frasdo. So it's related to the Latin form would be like circumlocution. So it's frasdo has the same root as phrase. And peri is around, or like akirka would be Latin form like concerning, or like around. So it's kind of like a way of my understanding is that it's a way of having an alternative I'm not entirely sure, but like an alternative turn of phrase where you use you have a sort of longer you use more words to express the same concept essentially. So it's like a circumlocution, that sort of sense.
Right.
That's my understanding of it.
Mine too.
But you often have like an infinitive form or a participle plus a simple verb, like an auxiliary verb. So that's basically just all that's saying, but it's just jargon, just to help people listening about this. So
Right.
and I also was wondering about the negated form, because I recently learned that in Coptic the aleph not aleph, sorry, the alpha changes, wrong language. The alpha changes to a negated form. So I was wondering, does that have to do with the Erie sort of mush into the negated stem, like
this one?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a completely different animal.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but I mean,
Okay.
It's a completely different construction. Great question, though.
Okay.
They are unrelated historically, I would say.
Okay, cool.
They just end up side
Great.
by side in the paradigm, in the grammar book, but completely
Huh.
different pathways to get there. The only thing I
That's
want
neat.
to add is to your point about periphrastic. That's the whole story of Late Egyptian. I mean, what I love about Late Egyptian, one of the things I love about it, it's so explicit in what tense is meant. You don't really have to carefully scrutinize the verb form or really think very hard about, well, which sDm.f is it? Or could that be, is there like a little extra radical written at the end or something? Most of the time, you have some kind of little helping verb in front, just like in Coptic, that tells you exactly what it is. So it's very explicit in what tense or mood is being meant. You'll see an example of that in a moment. I put one extra sentence in there, which comes up in Neveu much later. How would you say, if I had seen it, I would have said something? You know, those kind of things that I have no idea how you actually say them in Middle Egyptian. And in Late Egyptian, it's super easy. There's a form for that, for irrealis, for basically untrue conditions and what you would have done. So that is kind of neat. I was going to.
Is that different? Is that different from perspective then, if it's not going to happen, or is it the same thing?
Different. I would say that's different.
Ah, is it what you might call the conditional future?
Maybe. I mean, I
Not
like
that I know
conditional.
of.
I would have called it a conditional. If I would add the word future, not quite. For me, it's more like
I mean, it hasn't happened yet. If it's conditional, it might not happen.
right. But there's also like things where you know it didn't happen. Let's park that for a moment. Let me show you sentence number 7 in a moment, and then we can talk about it. On sentence number 6. Let's go a little bit into the usage. So the easiest, this one was a Neveu. I'm just going to drop any pronunciation differences between past and prospective / subjunctive. I'm going to put an A vowel into all of them. So I'm going to claim this is Idai. Maybe it's Irui, who knows, but I have no proof for it. So I'm just going to say it's Idai. Idai, ich, Idai. I don't know. Does anybody want to take a stab at this one?
I should try because so Iri,
Mhm.
Iri, I did.
Mhm.
Nah, and that's just presumably just some symbol or other that there
That's right.
above
This,
the.
mhm.
Yeah, is that right? Is that
Yeah.
supposed to be in there? Ihre.
Yeah, this is ich. Read, leave,
Oh,
and
ich. Make
ich.
it sound very Germanic. Ich.
Ich. It would be ash in Coptic.
Okay. Ri or r.
That's right. There's a word there.
Oh, it's a woman, isn't it? No, it's
It's a
not a
woman.
woman.
It's a woman.
Oh,
You're
it's a
correct.
woman with a bust. But so women just sitting down with their knees up.
Right. That's what it is. A B1 woman. Can be two things. Could be the first person singular speaking of I mean, a woman speaking, but that doesn't make much sense. Since you already have this already. It could be the second person singular as well. Which
Yeah.
used to be once upon a time, used to be oops, this. But the thing is, this is already falling off in late Egyptian. So it's basically a vowel at that point.
So we need to know what this thing ich is.
Ich, yeah. Ich is ash in Coptic. Do you remember ash in Coptic?
Oh, I see. I think of it as yeah, ash.
Mhm.
Ah, okay, got it. I can't remember what ash is. Sorry.
What? The question.
Oh, she did what?
Almost, but it's not she, it's
I did what to
Mhm.
her?
Yeah, and now it's not to her, but it is the second person.
I did what to you?
That's exactly what it is.
What
And
did I do to you?
exactly, what did I do for you? Why are you behaving that way? Yeah, exactly, you got
That's
it.
great. I like it when we do it like that.
What did I do to you? So this here actually would live on as, what is it? Ero, I guess, in Coptic, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think how you say the second singular feminine, but this is the preposition e, and then it regains its little r with the suffix pronoun. Is it at
It
all?
depends on the dialect. Sometimes it's kind of it's that's like the most irregular form, I think, in Coptic.
It
Sometimes
is.
it's R and sometimes it's just there's unmarked and sometimes it's oo.
Right. Do you know
So
what it is in this case? Because I honestly don't remember.
I don't I was just pointing out that it's always really irregular.
It's the bugbear par excellence. You're absolutely right.
And when it says, "What did I do to you?" The "you" is a woman, is she?
Correct.
Ah, okay.
That's why it's written with a why it's written. Let's have a quick
Okay, I
look at
love that. What did I do to you?
what did I do to you? Exactly.
That
It's
you should such and such.
that you should behave this way. That's right. Let me see about the prepositions here somewhere. Because that's kind of interesting. And I think we have time enough for the bunny ride. Some common prepositions. Here we go. So here's and then it becomes erof for to him. But
So it'd be eros. To her would be eros.
to her would be eros, but to you, feminine would be, that's what I'm looking for.
I
Plumley
see.
should have that.
Mo.
I think it just might be a raw with no ending in Bohairic, but I'm not sure.
What did it do to you?
I think the same, but bear with me. Really a question of
I think in
seconds.
Sahidic it's Eru and in Bohairic it's Erol, but I'm not sure. That's my guess.
Okay.
Oh, what you mean ERO and then that thing that looks like a gamma. Eru.
Yeah, but it's an upsilon, so it looks kind of like a gamma, but it's actually yeah,
Okay.
it's an upsilon. So that's
So
a
what are we trying to say
diphthong for
to
writing from Greek
you?
for W or U.
You're trying to say to you in Coptic. To you who's a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't.
How about a moss? Os. Isn't
But
that?
that's also for her. But how do you say it to a person? That's what I'm looking for.
Give me a sentence and I might think of it.
Um, I give it to you, but you say it to a woman, not to a man. So it's not erok, but it is.
Eros, I would have thought.
That's to her. I give it to her.
But to you who's a woman.
That's right. Or to
Oh,
thee.
ID Erol, I think.
Ero, you think?
Erol with a short omicron.
I think I'll park it there. I think you might be right though.
put it in the
And
chat when you find out because I'm really interested in this now.
I mean, you know what? Okay, all right. Let's have a quick look at Lambden. He should have it somewhere, right?
So like I give to you
Here you go.
a lump of gold.
There you go.
There you go.
Ah, nice.
So it's Edo, like you said, with a short Omicron. Why? Let's talk about that. That may actually make some sense because this used to be eroch in Middle Egyptian. There used to be a ch sound for the second person singular, feminine. And then the ch becomes a t, erot, and then it becomes ero, essentially, like a glottal stop. And then in the end, we're just left with nothing. But it has to be a short o because a long vowel can only stand in a syllable that doesn't end with a consonant. So it couldn't be ero with an omega because it has there used to be a consonant here at the end of it. So that's why it is ero. The only thing I don't completely know is when this thing becomes u, to Ben's point. Sometimes it's an u, and I haven't figured out when it does that. But you can see very similar patterns. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think that's when it's a verbal ending. Those endings get kind of confused between the pronominal suffixes for prepositions and the pronominal suffixes for verbs. So it depends on this. I think it depends on the stem and the dialect more with the verbs, but in general, for any form, for any type of word that takes pronouns on it, as an ending, as suffix, that form is almost always really irregular. So
Yes.
there's like some stems where it's ooh, I think with in one dialect for you feminine singular did something. And then there are other dialects where it's like R or something. It's kind of weird. So
You can sort of see, to your point, you can sort of see how it's a bugbear here. Like with Nema, it's Nemai, Nemak, Nemaf, Nemas. So you would think the feminine version for to you as a woman would be Nema, but it isn't. It's Neme. And if you look at Uwe, way against me, Uwe, sorry, Uwe, it would be against me, Uwe, against you, Uwek. But then for the female version, well, he puts Uwete here. It's not Uwe. So it's interesting. This form is indeed always a bugbear. If there was a T in the original word, that T may come out, like here, hiot. Originally, upon my back, upon your back, upon her back. And so that T that is in art back, that's coming out in the second singular. It's really something you have to learn for each preposition. Okay, I think I've gone on to enough of a bunny ride. But so this would really be something like irai, ich, era. I said erai before, that's wrong. That would be first person. So era, what have I done to you, or what did I do to you? Do you want to translate it as a past tense? What did I do to you? Do you want to translate it as a present perfect? What have I done to you? Up to you from context. In this case, really both equally make sense. Very cool. All right. Thanks, Rebecca, for that one. How about the next one? This one is not in ever, so I added that. It's all
Okay.
Okay. Oh, didn't see you dialed in.
I snuck in. I was just listening to your Coptic conversation. I need a course in Coptic, man. I need to take some Coptic. Yeah.
Oh, you should try Christian Casey's one, and you'll find it very lively.
Okay.
The one that Aurelio learned about. Time for an advert. What's it called, Aurelio?
The Christian's course, the
Uh,
original one.
yeah.
It's also on the same YouTube channel. Oh no, that's not true. It's on Christian's YouTube channel. I can put the
Just
link.
can't remember what it's called. What's it called?
Introduction
Okay.
to Sahidic Coptic with it was using Lambden's book.
If you Google
There's
Christian Casey.
Okay.
there's another one that goes over the different Coptic dialects. Sorry,
Yeah, no, you're
that's
right.
more advanced after a while. And there's also one that's going on currently in Bohairic. That we're almost, I think, almost halfway or about at the halfway point of a Bohairic Coptic book. So,
Well done.
yeah,
That's
so
it.
That's
This is
it.
the one you found. Yeah. It's
that's also in the Discord, Mark.
very amusing. If you're not too easily shocked, Christopher.
No, this one is great. I mean, that's what I learned where I learned Coptic. Long time ago, university days, I'd taken a bit of Till's Coptic in German, but then let it sit for 30 years. And then this basically, Christian plus Lambden, the textbook, it basically gets you there. If you do the course afterwards, you can read Coptic. And that's
Hmm.
the best possible outcome. And now we're having a Bohairic class, like Rebecca was saying. Oh no, Ben was saying, led by Mark. That one is, I would say, by now 2.5 months into it. But that's every Tuesday at 7, I believe, Eastern
7
time.
p.m. Eastern time.
And that one's live. So that's still ongoing. Christian's class was, as you can see, 2020, but all the videos are still up.
Which dialect is closest to Late Egyptian?
No difference. They're both equally close. It's more of a question, what do you want to do with it? Sahidic is the one where you have, well, more, how would I say that? Sahidic was the earlier standard, like in the 400s, 500s, 600s. And so, for example, Shenouda, one of the most prolific original writers in Coptic, everything he wrote is in Sahidic. But then starting from 900, 1000 maybe, Bohairic becomes the standard and is the standard in the Coptic Church until today. So when people want to learn Coptic for liturgical purposes because they want to know what the hymns actually mean that they're singing, they normally go for Bohairic. That's really the difference. So that's why you find more of the philologists on the Sahidic side and more of the today's Copts on the Bohairic side. In terms of grammatical difference, almost none. The pronunciation is different. and the vocabulary has variations. Like imagine a strong Northern English accent and a deep South American accent. I would say that's like the difference between the two. It takes some getting used to. But if you were to spell like the more divergent versions of English phonetically, you get about the same amount of differences between the two different types of Sahidic and Bohairic.
Gotcha.
Also, all the Greek loan words that come into it that unfortunately replace some of the older Egyptian forms, but oftentimes it's really interesting because there's a Greek loan word and there's a comparable native indigenous Egyptian word. So it's pretty cool, and they get used oftentimes interchangeably in different contexts. I find it really fun. It's really cool going between this course and learning about Coptic because the grammar is really, really close. And the fact that it's written in alphabet, no offense to hieroglyphs are awesome. That's why we're here. But I think that it's also a part of it. That's why I'm here, part of why I'm here. But like the fact that it's written with an alphabet that you can pronounce it very clearly, it's really cool to go between the two and see like how the spelling changes between dialects and how it can be traced back to late Egyptian. It's pretty fun.
No doubt, no doubt. So yeah, +1 on the idea of doing Coptic. Back to our late Egyptian though. I think you just volunteered for the sentence, so
Yes. All right, so we have you,
Mhm.
you, gem, erjed, iriyefset, or iriyefse.
Mhm. That's correct.
All right. All right, so we have I guess now, and they found
Mhm. That's correct. And they found.
oh, okay. I thought you were gonna type it. Okay, and they found I
Oh.
guess saying or conversating, saying.
Hang on, I have a job to do. And yeah, it could mean saying, or it could just simply mean namely, like that. That's a late Egyptian thing. You can just say El Jed for where we would put that. And they found, oops, not count, found that.
Oh, he did well, he created it, he did it, he made it.
He did it. As simple as
did
that. I'm sure that's from a court document again, and they found that he did it. Literally that he did them, but as you correctly picked up, the them in this case just means these things, or in English we would just say it.
And that circle there is not a glyph. That's not like a pellet glyph, is it? That's something you
No.
just.
That's just me being annoying and putting Japanese punctuation. Because I just find it easier with commas and parentheses. And Western punctuation looks silly, so it just works better with something that was designed for a more three-dimensional full-size writing system. So yeah, that you can ignore the period. They did have a period. They had like you have the verse points, like a
Verse
comma,
points, yeah.
and then there's also a little thing that looks like a hand, like a little hand, basically almost like a little iron arm, but somewhat slanted, and that can be used like a full stop behind. In some texts you have that, but more often than not you don't.
Oh,
And
wow, I haven't seen that. Okay.
yeah, it's kind of cool. So in principle you have that, but since I'm adding these, they're not in the original. I'm just going with Japanese here.
I love it how you bring the far east all the way over to I love it.
Advantage of having too many keyboards for once. It's pretty great.
That's true. That's true. That's true. No, why am I doing it? Just because, like, if you have a longer text, like, say, for example, this one here, the moment you put commas in there and full stops and stuff, I find it way easier to parse. We're used to this. They were used to continuous script. It didn't matter to them if you like just go on and on and on. Same with Coptic. Coptic hardly uses any spaces, and once in a while they put like a random dot where you would think, oh, that's where the sentence ends, but they just use it as a pause, as a comma, like a mark that, okay, here's a pause in the speech, and so they put a dot, and then it goes on with the next 50 letters in a long string. I find that for us nowadays extremely hard to read, because we're so used to, you put a comma, you put something at least, just to chop up the flow a little bit. Yeah. Okay, no, that was perfect, spot on. Grammar point is so EDF, or however that's pronounced, there is a past tense in here, and you can see it's just he did it. That's all it is. Well done. Anybody want to try the third one?
Sure.
Okay.
So Petteri.
Hang on.
Oh, yes, of course.
Is it an E? I think it's just Petter. I think. I could be wrong. Let's check it
Put
out
it
real
in
quick.
parentheses or
Also a
oh,
possibility.
we can look it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? I'm okay with the parentheses. Maybe not, because this new font is really annoying. But let's see.
Yeah,
Let's see what our friend does.
sure.
Yep. Come up. Hello.
Yeah, to see normally has an I determinative with it normally.
Definitely has the I, but do we want to transcribe the read leaf? He doesn't do it. But I'm cool with it because I mean ultimately, wait. So this becomes spore in Coptic. So the R is still there. The R doesn't get lost because in some words already in Middle Egyptian you have it that the R becomes silent and they write a reed leaf instead to indicate there's something there. But in this case, I would claim the R is actually there because it's still preserved in Coptic. So yeah, let's keep it the way it is. Petri. Okay. Petri.
Petteri, hub,
That's right.
hubby? Probably not. Eni, pa hemnetjer, en goed her. Yeah, goed her. So Hathor,
Very good.
Erjed,
Jet. Yep.
Mai,
That's right. Or just me. Yeah, mine.
oh gosh, Chess, I think, Chesapset.
Shesep.
Okay,
Shesep. You're right. Perfect.
okay. So, Petteri, one of these words, behold.
Yep. Look, behold.
Yeah. Habni Pahemnetjer. Okay, so Pahemnetjer and Huther is the Hathor priest. And he did something to me, but I don't know what the word hab means.
Ascent.
Ah,
Often in the meaning of to ride.
right. So he wrote to me saying, Mi ershesepset.
Priest of Hathor wrote to me. Yep. Saying.
So me, I also don't know.
That is the imperative of to give. Of to come. Sorry, of to come. Amu in
And
Coptic.
shesep?
To receive, or in this case, maybe just get.
Come to get it?
Come and get it, yeah. Whatever it is, I have no idea, but whatever they're talking about. Come.
Okay. Sorry, but that sounds ridiculously modern considering how we started translating this.
That's why I changed it from behold to just see.
Yeah, even the saying, I don't know how to, even with see, come and get it. Okay,
What?
fine.
All right. Well, but
Can you
that's
say
it is.
come and get them?
Or kind of get them.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Or it. I mean, if you look at the previous, it really depends on context. But literally,
Politer to say come
But
and
it's plural, it does have plural strokes.
right. But then, I mean, here we had it too, right? These things, meaning it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But okay, you guys are right. It is correcter. I mean, more correct. With the
otherwise it would be and they found that they did him in. Okay, sorry. one could add here, just to be flippant, in My Fair Lady,
Love
after
it.
she's learned to speak properly, and then she goes to Royal Ascot with some lord, and he says, and she said her mother died, and then he said, "Oh, how did she die?" And she loses her perfect accent and says, "It was the gin what done him in."
Right. Too funny. Love it. All right. So yeah, very well done. Grammar point here was this one, Neveu pointed out in the text. So Hab, Paham Nacher, and Hathor basically sent the priest of Hathor. That is a sDm.f. So here's the sDm, and the F in this case is this long nominal expression. But just like in the sDm.f, it comes after the verb, and the dative to me, the ni or nai, that basically sneaks in because pronominal datives always come before nominal subjects. That's true in Middle Egyptian, that's true in Late Egyptian as well. So otherwise, it would just be chap, paham, nacher, and chator. If it were like to the scribe, for example, it would say en sechao at the end to the scribe, but in this case, being a pronominal dative, it has to come first. All right. Come and get them, or receive them. Mayst thou come and receive them? I don't know. Okay, any questions about this one? So basic meaning, it's pretty clear. So just like a past tense, I'll do this one just because this one has a ton of vocabulary in it. And took me a while to puzzle that one apart. So basically, this one says MD, Khatik, Emsa, Chesperit. So I should probably write this out, and I hope I get it right. I guess I'll spell it the way it's spelled here. No guarantees. Sa, pa, chesperit. Okay, so the to give the heart, or like to pay attention, or more specifically to worry. Like don't worry what? Don't worry emsa, don't worry after, literally, but in this case, don't worry about. Oh, the M is the negative imperative. We haven't covered that yet, but basically a little M in front of it to say don't. Don't worry about what? The pace spirit. And if you look in Neveu, he says something really cryptic. He says, do not worry about the seed sowing form. What is
Wow.
that? What is a seed sowing form?
Seed sowing form.
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know, like some kind of form, A257, fill out double signature, and send in copy to. So I was wondering, what is that? So chess is a tax, and peret is indeed seed. So literally, it means something like the seed tax. Let's come back to what that is in a moment. But I'm not sure that really a form is meant here. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
It also means to sit too in Middle Egyptian. So I'm figuring how with the same determinative. Interesting.
This one or the peret?
The chess.
What does it mean?
In Middle Egyptian also means to sit, and they have the same man determinative. I guess maybe it was used for children. Like if you don't sit down, I'll beat you with this stick. I guess I'm just kind of stretching here, but yeah, it means to sit.
To sit. Chess means sit. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Chess.
I looked it up and it said spine, which
Okay.
would fit with you sitting.
Wow. Okay, let's have a look at this puppy.
I've seen chess means spine. Yeah.
Oops.
It was really hard to find because it kept trying to change it to t or ch z.
Let's see. Where did you look it up? In Ramses or in?
Oh, I looked it up in Ramesses online and it changed to t z. I don't know what the right words are for these things. And I got the pruts pretty quickly, the growing season, like Perret emerging. And then
Right.
it just, and then I got a spine from somewhere. I'm afraid where. Tell you.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have seen it mean spine too. Late Egyptian.
Yeah.
Late Egyptian.
I think the
Spine.
determinative looks like the one for spine, so maybe it's a reuse of some similar sounding words. Who knows?
Oh, what does it say there? Banque de sable. What the earth is that? That is a bank of
Sandbank.
The
sand.
sandbank. The sandbank.
Sandbank or a tooth, not that. Nuée, what's that?
To not, and under that it says tax. And actually, so I've got the French original, so there it says bordereau, which can also be translated as list or bill. Check for the Americans.
Check. Yeah. Thank you.
So seed, I got your seed check.
Yeah,
seed
it
check.
could be the bill for your seed tax. I think that
Yeah.
might make a little more sense. I mean, form is the primary meaning of bordereau, but it can mean
Hmm.
it can mean
Receipt.
bill. I'm just not sure
Bill, like
why
receipt.
on earth never decided to translate it that way.
Well, I think Neveu is himself translated from French into English.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's translation.
Oh,
The French is the original.
Yeah.
And so I was also thinking this could be a lost in translation kind of moment.
Yeah, in fact, I wonder if it would be good to get the niveau in French because it might make more sense.
At least over here, stateside, it cost 3 times as much, which was a deterrent for me.
yeah. I only was able to get an affordable copy because this is a very, very used copy that's full of annotations. But
What does he say? What does the French say then?
bordereau d'ensemencement. Fucking hell, French. Bordereau d'ensemencement. So bordereau, form, list, bill of, seeding.
Of seeding.
it's much better.
The seeding in. So semer is to seed, ensemer is to seed in a field, and ensemencement is the noun for that. So the seeding in, the action of seeding in
Can
the
I
field.
can I
Yeah.
chip in a couple of meanings that I've come across in Middle Egyptian? One is to tie in the sense of tying a knot.
Yeah, we have that here, noué.
Oh, that's nuée, is it?
Yes.
I know that. Oh, right, that's good. And then hs as a noun, as a sentence of speech. I guess it's things that are tied together.
Oh, wow.
Enunciation is potentially that
True, that's similar, isn't it?
what is
glyph.
being said.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The glyph looks like it visually depicts a knot. At least the main phonetic one. Like it's two
correct.
strings tied together. So
Mhm.
maybe it's a rebus or rebus principle related thing where you have a bunch of words that sound like that and you use the same symbol of a knot for all of them, even if they're not, a seed tax isn't related to a knot at all.
Well,
Or
but
maybe you tie it with a bow and when you send it to the government, who knows?
yeah,
Maybe.
that
But
sounds
I
like
mean, we know that's how it works, right? So
it sounds like a bill. Instead of saying I'd like the bill, waiter, like as you do in English, just say
Sounds okay. It has a stick with it.
Not.
I get it.
yeah.
Not
Bring me
please.
the chairs.
Gosh, there is a lot of words that look very similar here, especially if you add the feminine ending to it. Oh, and here is the spine that you found, indeed. Chesed with an extra
Ah.
T.
hooray.
And none of these have that determinative so far. Well, there are a couple more pages, I think. So
Okay.
Well, the tax had the determinative.
Right.
right. I meant like so far in here, or did
Oh,
it have that? Did that
this
have
page.
fine determinative that we
There
saw?
you go. There you go. Those two.
Well, but that's not this. Is that the same as what we had? I thought it was a
I thought it
spine.
was. No. The spine only came from the other word.
Okay,
Mhm.
I jumped ahead. I skipped. Sorry. Thanks.
No worries.
You can tell it's a tax because there's a man beating you with a stick.
Exactly. It makes sense.
Exactly.
Well, it is nice that some things just don't change. But what's that saying about the only certain things in the universe being taxes?
Death and taxes.
Death
Yeah.
and taxes.
Death and tax.
Death and taxes.
Ben Franklin, yes.
Oh, is that Ben Franklin? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh,
Ben Franklin.
okay.
Only thing is certain is death and taxes.
All right. Yeah. What can I say? April soon. At least this side of the Atlantic. Yeah.
April here too. I think it's the growing season.
That's your seed tax there.
Yeah. I'm just
Okay.
trying to bring it back to get as a segue into the next bit for Aurelia.
Right, right.
Smart
Yeah,
move.
let's
I
get
love
back
it.
to Egyptian.
I love it. So then he basically goes on irai se mettre, which is to investigate. So note that he uses the periphrastic thing here. So he doesn't say smetref or something. I'm sorry. Smetri. He doesn't say I investigated. This is a four radical verb, SMTR. So they're using that combination with iri in front. So iri smetref. I investigated it or him. I investigated it. Gemi se schomt, or I should say schomt and say. I found three people. Menich, I had to look up, is a helper, a young person. So not like a fully grown man, but some kind of youngster in a helping position. Menich wa, or wa menich, one helper. Damage is in total. And I'm not sure why there's a F2 behind it. 4. I have to look up if that's real. Ire en haar, ayo. Sefer shit, 700. So let me translate this real quick. Let me write it out first. That was quite a bit. So iri, I did make the investigation. So smetr, but not direct, but we're going to put a suffix pronoun at the end. So I investigated it. I made the investigation of it. And I found Gemi, or Gemai, 3 people. So, or maybe at this point in time, it's not a Z anymore, it's a S. So probably Shamza, Wa'a Menich. I'm going to put the numbers in front because that's how it was probably said. Damage in total, I guess in total 4. I guess in total it would be if 2. Damage if 2. I'm going to put a comma there just to keep it. Ir en sefer shit. Okay. So that was super cryptic. Basically, it seems to say I investigated it. I found that 3 men, 1 helper, altogether 4, make or come to 700 khar. Khar is a sack, like a sack of grain. It holds precisely 77 liters. So that's a big amount, I would say, of grain. I mean, 700 liters. If you have 4 people or 4.5 people. Okay. And then he goes on. Hope I get this right. Is it Medet? Medut? I'm not sure. I think it's just Medi. MD na Ryu. I'll have to double check that. Don't want to tell you nonsense here. Sau Sechau and oops. This puppy here is a Shenut, a granary. Let me look up if I did this properly, but supposed to be the past tense of to speak. I spoke. MD with. Na, the, plural. I think that's how it's spelled. Heru, literally those on top, or the chief. The chief Shao, the chief guardians. Guardians of what? Of the Sikhao. Normally you think this means scribe, but it's not spelled with a person. It's spelled with a some kind of code for a document. So this basically means documents in this case. So the guardians of the documents of the Shenut. So that would be, what would those be? The chief guardians of the documents of the Shenut. the chief administrators, the chief record keepers, maybe the chief record keepers of the granary. Let's see what Neveu, or at least his English version, has there. So the whole seed form we had.
Oh, archivist.
Go again. Most of it.
Archivist. That's nice.
Archivist?
I have recommended the chief archivists of
Oh, archivists. Yeah, you're right. Oh, archivists. I like that.
fun.
That works.
Yeah.
That makes more sense than I was thinking.
Might work.
A counter in a way, but archivist makes sense. Okay. So let's first look at this though. So yeah, the 4 is correct. Ir en char, sefer shet, medui. Okay, let's fix this. Medui, the past tense here. Medui MD nach, okay. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Sheriu? Cheriu, not Sheriu. That's better. Cheriu sau seshu. Oh, here's seshu. I'm not sure if I believe that. It's always the question, how do you pronounce this glyph? Do you pronounce it as sesh or do you pronounce it as sechau? I don't know. Okay, we're doing the Neveu course, so I'm going to change it to what he has.
I think that there was a later word used for scribe and that or for writing that got introduced. I think Zahau was like an older form, and then Sesh is a more recent form that goes into Coptic, but I'm not sure. I just
you would think
rings a bell.
the only problem is that it's Sach in Coptic, for the scribe at least. So it has a ch sound at the end, which normally is going the wrong way. The ch in early Egyptian becomes sh in Coptic, but not the other way around, I believe. So that strongly
Oh,
speaks
so maybe
for
both of them are used, and Zahau goes into Coptic in an
maybe.
abbreviated form. Okay, cool.
Could be. So basically what he's saying is, and that was super cryptic to me. I've made the investigation. I found that 3 men, 1 helper, altogether 4. That comes to 700 sacks. I've spoken with the chief archivists of the granary and something. Thought, okay, this is clear as mud. What is that all about? I did look it up. Oops, wrong. The papyrus is Papyrus Bologna. There are actually 2 of them. Papyrus Bologna. And oh, this is not the best photo, but you can sort of see it. It's essentially a letter actually by a scribe to his father, if I remember correctly. And it starts with, essentially, it starts with a matter of a Syrian slave that was supposed to be a worker for, basically for the father, that had been never had basically reached his estate or whatnot. It was sequestered by another official. And the son basically said, well, I inquired where he should have been, and they told me, we've never seen him, but you should go to official so-and-so. He took him, and then he goes to the official there and is basically being told by his henchman that, no, we never had this guy. So essentially, he's trying to track down this worker that formerly should have been working for his father, but that's missing in action. And that's what he's referring to. He essentially is basically saying, so yeah, from the text perspective, this is what it would be for 4 people. It should be 700 sacks of grain or seed. But then he goes on, basically the ... part I left out. But since it's only 2.5, it's only going to be 500, basically. I've already taken care of it. And so you're basically getting a credit. That's at least the way I'm reading it. So when you know the whole backstory around it, suddenly that sentence makes a whole lot more sense than the way it shows up in the text. It's an interesting short letter, and it is on, the whole text is in the TSA, although the translation may as so often only be in German, but you can find it in there under, I think, at the Papyrus Bologna or on the accession number, one of the 2. So yeah, just want to share that because that sentence really had me puzzled. What is the seed sowing form? I still don't know. I looked up multiple books to see what the seed tax was. How is that different from like your normal taxes? Because it's not the same thing. Is this something that you pay at after, I don't know. Is that I really don't know. It seems to be different from the regular text. That's all I could figure out. Or is it even a text? I mean, chess is normally a text. It's some kind of calculation. Or is it like a quota that you're responsible for? I really don't know that. I have not been able to find it. And I looked into a few books that with titles like Economy and in Ancient Egypt and the like. So it's a little bit of a mystery. But at least it seems to be based on how many people you have working, which is the problem here. He's short of one man, so he doesn't want to be responsible for the full amount. And his son took care of it.
I
That's all
wonder
I have,
whether
folks.
I wonder whether the young people, the la jeunesse for this Munich, whether they get paid less like they do in
Probably.
England.
Or, I mean, the question here is this a payment or is this something that you're responsible for? It sounds to
If
me
you're
like it's
under
something they
25, you
shouldn't.
get low salary.
Do you get taxed less? Nowadays, I'm not sure. It's been too long. No, it goes by money, right? It doesn't go by age. No exemption. All right, guys. I'm sorry, I have to hop over to the Sumerians. But let's continue this then next time in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
It sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
No worries at all. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
In 2 weeks.